Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the Abhinivesha, which is clinging to one's existence. It's a tendency to be clinging to one's existence. And since we have so far dealt with avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, the four kleshas, with reference to human psyche and human mindset. But here, Patanjali brings a additional dimension by mentioning Vidusho oapi and Svarasava. So, these two predicates here, Svarasava and Vidusho oapi, that is, it flows on its own potentials and it is there also in wise ones. Now, it holds a purport why these predicates are used, because otherwise this is there even in case of avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha. But why is it that he mentions here particularly in Abhinivesha Sutra is something which is worth consideration, and there is definitely a purport. The thing is that he wants to mention something which is clear in commentaries of Vyasa and Vachaspati Mishra and Vijnana Bhikshu. What he wants to point out that it is there even in Akrume Brahma Pariyanta. Akrume Brahma Pariyantam. That means right from tiniest of creatures, any creature, no exception whatsoever, any creature, any life form, it has this tendency to be clinging to existence. And we see that they put up fight. All forms of life are seen putting up fight when the life is at stake. When the physical existence is at stake, we see that this fight is there. And from there to Vidushi. Vidushi means Vijnata Purva Paranta, as described in commentary of Vijnana Bhikshu. So, certain things are to be considered here. That knowledge that death is there for everyone, every being. This is for human being. Human being will have knowledge of death. Human being will know that the death is certainty. By pratyaksha, by anumana and by agama, which are three means of knowledge, mankind will get this knowledge that death is inevitable. But then, what about the subhuman species? So, it is not something based on knowledge. Abhinivesha is not something, or the fear for extinction is not because of knowledge. It is even there for every subhuman species, any kind of life form. This is what has to be mentioned, and that is why Patanjali has added those predicates. Because we see that when people grow wiser, spiritually wiser, then perhaps avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha are seen countered. We have seen saintly people who do not have the raga lobha or raga dvesha, do not have asmita, do not have egoism, pride, etc., self conceit, etc. And we can't say that they are ignorant also. They have wisdom. But Patanjali wants to say that one doesn't escape Abhinivesha. Howsoever one might be wise, even spiritually wise. And therefore, the commentators have made it clear by using the expression Vignat Purva Paranta. That means even if one knows that about from where have I come, why I am here, and where am I going to, although this is knowledge is there, which the Adhyatma gives, spiritual wisdom gives, even if knowledge is there, yet this tendency doesn't depart. In whatever form, in whatever degree, small to huge degree, it is there. Fear of extinction is there. And therefore, this vasana is samasamana, equal to all beings, whether one is wise or one is innocent, ignorant, stupid, unwise, kushala, kushala. So, Vyasa makes it clear by saying that one might be even a jnani or one might be a doltish person. Both have this Abhinivesha as klesha in some degree or the other. So kushala purusha prati, that means those who are accomplished spiritually and not accomplished. This vasana is samasamana. This vasana is there. Abhinivesh vasana is there. So this has been repeatedly said and emphatically said in all the commentaries. So wise man knows that this is bondage, there is bondage, and there is something called liberation, etc. So they have the knowledge of bandhana mukti, bandhana and mukti. Yet they have this abhinivesha, this vasana, this klesha. Because the wise people have shruta anumita jnanam. Their knowledge is shruta anumita. Because their knowledge is because of scriptures that they have studied and read and understood and comprehended, or anumita jnanam, or by inference. So Vachaspati Mishra makes it clear in his commentary that even for a liberated one, there is purva bandha koti, and then there is kaivalyam. The moksha is preceded by bondage. That's called purva bandha koti. And about this, there is shruta anuvita jnanam. The moksha shastras tell us about that we are bound, we have bondage, and then of course liberation is possible, emancipation is possible, moksha is possible, kaivalya is possible. There are means of liberation. So they have the knowledge of bandhanam and moksham, both. And when Patanjali refers to vidushi, vidwan, the reference is to this person. So, the point is that this is there even in case of avidya stricken people. So, why is it that Patanjali has not brought Avidya Sutra with this particular predicate? Vidusho api, Asmita Vidusho api, and Raga Dvesha Vidusho api. So, he has not used this prayogam. He has not the prayog of Vidusho api with reference to other kleshas, while they are that much there, as much as Abhinivesha. So Vachaspati Mishra doesn't really clarify about why this Vidusho api has not come to with reference to other kleshas. But if you look into Vartika, Yoga Vartika of Vijnana Bhikshu, you see that he has tackled this problem. Vidushi means Kushala Purusha, who has Vijnata Purva Paranta Jnanam, as just now I referred to. Vijnata Purva Paranta means it is not only Shabda Jnanam, it is not verbal knowledge, but he is one who has experienced even Samadhi, Samprajnat Samadhi. And this is made clear by, this is explicit mention by Vijnana Bhikshu. So the reference here is not just one who has bookish knowledge, but one who has really has intuitive mystic experience of Samprajnata Samadhi. Of course, there are some who have taken objection on Vijnana Bhikshu's mention that Vidushi means Samprajnat Prapta Yogi. So some of the commentators have taken objection because they cannot tolerate that there is the klesha, this kind of klesha, even after one has experienced Samprajnat Samadhi. Because by Samprajnat Samadhi, even Patanjali doesn't mention that the kleshas have ended. Kleshas are going to end. That's the point in time where kleshas are slowly on dwindle. It's not that the kleshas are ended and then you get Samprajnat Samadhi. Patanjali mentions the end of kleshas at some later stage and not by Samprajnat Samadhi itself. So Dharmamega Samadhi, that means one who is at the threshold of Asamprajnat Samadhi, that too the final Asamprajnat Samadhi. So these things are clear in Patanjali's text. In Samprajnat Samadhi, Patanjali says that there is Rutambhara Prajna. That means truth revealing Prajna. And then he says that is going to work on samskar management. That is going to destroy the samskars. But then the doubt comes to inquisitive mind, why then Abhinivesha samskar is still there, or that vasana is still there? Is it that all other vasanas go away but Abhinivesha vasana is still there? So again Bhikshu has a reply here. He says, Iyam balavattara vasana chittena sahanashatyeva jnanem na dahyata iti etat avidyadi samskarebhya vishesha. So he makes it clear that this is very, very strong, potent, formidable vasana, balavattara. And then when is it going to be destroyed? Chittena saha. When the chitta is going to be destroyed, in the process of kaivalya, where Patanjali mentions tataha klesha karma nivrittihi. So other kleshas will have gone. Whatever remainder of klesha, that is this avidya of the form of Abhinivesha, the last tail of avidya. Because if we take the klesha as a long snake, So the tail of the snake is still there. And then that is going to go away in the process of kaivalya, which is called pratiprasava. Gunanam pratiprasavaha, which is mentioned in the 4th chapter. So it is still there. Avidya in the tiniest form is still there. Avidya is slowly going away by samprajnat samadhi process, asamprajnat samadhi process. So the kleshas are on ouster. But suppose a huge elephant has to pass, it takes long time for elephant to pass, and then finally the tail would pass. It is not that first tail would pass and rest of the elephant would be passing, and finally the tail will be passing. So this is a huge elephant of klesha of the form of elephant, and then finally the tail is going to be going. The tail is still remaining despite samprajnat, asamprajnat samadhis. In that sense it is strong. It is not that it is very strong klesha. It is a form of avidya. But when the kleshas are on the go, or on expulsion, or on ouster, so it's a long chain of kleshas. So it will be passing in the process of yogis, kaivalya prakriya, kaivalya process. So this is the last piece of it. Last piece of avidya that is still there. The tail of the elephant has to pass, then you see the whole elephant has gone. So that's how is the explanation here offered by Vartikara Vijnana Bhikshu. So it is balavattara, it is so strong in that sense. It is not that it is strong by potency. Because avidya is gone in the sense of atma and atma viveka, because yogi by samadhi gets to know what is real atma and what is anatma. It's not that he is not clear about it. And therefore the asmita is also gone, raga is also gone, dvesha is also gone, but the tail piece of klesha is this abhinivesha. That is why it is strong. It is not strong by potency. So this is how we have to understand. And that is why Patanjali mentions Vidus oapi. So he is purva aparanta, vijnata paranta, vijnata purva aparanta, as Vartikar makes it clear. So this is not karanatmak avidya, but this is karyatmak abhinivesha. This defect remains until liberation, until chittanasha. Is it not going to go? It is going to go when the chitta itself is gone. As long as chitta is there, it is there. And therefore there is no incompatibility in mentioning such a characteristic of abhinivesha, that it is there even for vidushis. Vidushis means, again I repeat, not one who has bookish knowledge, but who has experiential knowledge in the realm of adhyatma and paramartha. It is that form of avidya which is the last piece of avidya, tail piece of avidya, and that has to go. Until it has not gone, then it remains in the form of abhinivesha. So we have tried to understand these particular predicates which come in Abhinivesha Sutra, and Patanjali in the 2nd chapter, 10th Sutra, has said, Te pratiprasave heyaha sukshmaha. They are so strong because they are so subtle. Don't look at the word strong in the sense it is like a robust wrestler, not the power of that kind. It is strong because it is so subtle and it doesn't escape like that in samadhi process. It escapes when kaivalya prakriya, process of kaivalya is on, And therefore, Patanjali too has this mention in the Sutra 2.10, which comes later. Te pratiprasava heyaha sukshmaha. Sukshma kleshas would be going away in pratiprasava. That is the kaivalya process, the reversal process, where the chitta will be destroyed finally. So as long as the chitta is there, Abhinivesha is there. Chitta is gone, Abhinivesha is gone. So for Abhinivesha to go, the chitta itself must be gone. So this intricacy has to be understood. Then it won't be so perplexing. Anyway, the Abhinivesha is of the nature of I should always be existing, I should never cease to exist. So this is how is the Abhinivesha as klesha. And we can trace the viparyasta dharana here. Because Atma is birthless and deathless. There is nothing like life for Atma. Life is for Jiva. Because of bondage we have Jivatvam, and because of Jivatvam we have Jivanam, and because of Jivanam we have the life. Because Atma is very living principle. For living principle there is nothing like life. It is eternally living principle. So therefore we can see that avidya of the nature of Atma and Atma Viveka. As long as the klesha is there, this form of illusion is going to be there. It is only going to be going away only when chitta is totally dismantled. The chitta itself is made non-existent, which happens in kaivalya process. Now, since it is such kind of subtle kind of klesha, it is called andhatamistra in Sankhya. Andhatamistra, andha means blind, tamistra means enormous amount of tamoguna, darkness. Darkness with reference to internal light of spirituality. It's complete darkness. So, that is how the Abhinivesha has been described. So now there are few interesting questions which come up during the course of our inquiry or sense of inquiry that we have and we should be having as students. Now, is it not positivism that I should always be existing? That I should never cease to exist? Is it not positivism? I don't want to die. Is it not positivism? I should never die. Is it not positivism? And that positivism is embraced by psychology. Positivism is embraced by all those ideals or idealistic philosophies, idealistic ideas, notions for mankind. So, then why do you consider it as a klesha? Because klesha is taken as affliction in English. And that's why this doubt comes. It is positivism that I want to ever be existent, I don't want to cease from existence. It's a positivism. And in case, if there is that fear, the fear is individualistic fear, vyaktigata. It is personal fear. Now, it is personal fear. The world should not bother about it. The whole humanity should not bother about it. It is so personal that I don't want to be non-existence. I don't want to cease from existence. This is a personal desire. Why at large the whole society should be bothering about this affliction? Because society is tormented by your avidya, by your asmita, by your raga and dvesha. So with your attachment, aversion, the whole world suffers. With your pride and arrogance and self-conceit, the world around you suffers. By raga dvesha, the world around you suffers. By your ignorance, the world around you also suffers. But then this Abhinivesha, if it is said to be fear of extinction, then the world should not bother about it. It is so very, very, very personal. So this is one question that comes up. It is so vyaktigata. Secondly, how is it that by this Abhinivesha, in the sense that I should not cease to exist, how does it add to bondage? How does it reinforce the bondage? And how does it become a klesha, in the sense the science explains technically that klesha means bondage. So how is it that it adds to bondage? Now, if the other thing, if you have seen mathematically, that Abhinivesha is Dvesha into Dvesha. If you recall the mathematical equations which were given, Dvesha into Dvesha is Abhinivesha. But then, in this clinging to existence, we don't see any aversion. We don't see Dvesha. Then how do you say it is Dvesha into Dvesha multiplied Dvesha? Because the mathematical equation has postulated that Dvesha into Dvesha is Abhinivesha, or Raga into Raga into Raga into Raga is Abhinivesha, or Asmita into Asmita into Asmita into Asmita into Asmita into Asmita is Abhinivesha. So, the question is with reference to Dvesha. If Dvesha into Dvesha, or Dvesha square is Abhinivesha, but we don't see any Dvesha in this Abhinivesha, which is said to be of the nature of clinging to one's existence, not wanting to be ceasing from existence. Where is the Dvesha? It is attachment, it is seen to be attachment. One is attached to one's existence. Where is the Dvesha seen here? And how Abhinivesha is greatest magnification of avidya. So these are certain basic technical questions which are raised. How is it that Abhinivesha is avidya magnification to highest degree? Because Abhinivesha is said to be avidya into avidya into avidya into avidya into avidya into avidya is Abhinivesha. Now, how is that much magnification of avidya in Abhinivesha? So these are certain questions which come to inquisitive mind. So let's try to seek answers to these in the same order that we saw these questions. So Abhinivesha is primarily of the nature of I should be ever existent. Now this very idea that I should be ever existent is with reference to body and bodily existence. One doesn't have this hope that I should be existing in any form. It is attachment to that body. I should ever exist means I should ever exist in the form that I am today. So, tanvanubandha, it is a very strong bondage to physical existence that one already has. Because when one says, I don't want to cease to exist, it means that that person doesn't want to be ceasing from existence in the form that the person is now. That means it is bondage with physical existence. It is binding with one's physical existence, one's body. One's want to exist in the same body. Uh, so one doesn't want to separate from body. This is what the Abhinivesha is. And that's why I said that alternative reading that Bhoja provides in his Vritti is Tatha Rudho has been replaced by Tanvanubandha. He replaces Tatha Rudaha that we get in one reading, which we are considering. That's the reading we have taken here. He replaces Tatha Rudho, he brings Tanvanubandha. Tanu means body. So, one wants immortality of the body, not just immortality of oneself. One wants immortality of body. Now, this is not at all positivism. This is not positivism. And you can see the enormous amount of ignorance, because the body will be never imperishable, but yet there is desire that one should be in that body and it should be unperishable, imperishable. Now this is not wisdom at all. So see the extent of avidya that you will find in Abhinivesha. It is absolutely impossible that the body will be immortal. But here one wants to be having immortal body. It doesn't want to be separating from this body and then the body becoming corpse and then disposed. And therefore you can see the enormous amount of avidya, which was one of the questions here. And the other question was positivism. Is it not positivism? It is not a positivism. I want to be ever with his body. I should ever exist with the same body is not at all positivism. So, some of the questions that we considered, you can find answer to those in this delineation that I am making. Now, if the desire is very strong, you should know that it becomes very explosive desire. Desire always is highly explosive when it becomes very strong desire. And this is a very strong desire that I should never cease to exist, in the sense I should never cease to exist from this physical form of mine. Now this is extreme kind of desire. And when it is such an amount of desire, it is going to explode and it is going to be fragmented and it would be devastating. Therefore, it is an explosive kind of klesha, because it is such a desire which is out of proportion in every sense of the term. It would never stand. You will never have immortal body. The body has to be immortal. There has to be mortality in the body. Cannot be having immortality. And the desire to have this is really mad desire. Not only mad desire, but very, very explosive desire. And therefore you can understand how it could be devastating. Therefore there is no positivism at all. It seems to be positivism, but it is not positivism at all. With little insight into it, slight insight will tell you that this is nothing but enormous desire. And desire out of proportion, unrealistic desire. So something that is unrealistic cannot be positivistic thinking. Um, then, as we have seen, that this is there in all living beings, and then many times we are told, related a story about this, that there is a well and there is water in the well, and then there is raining, downpour of rains, the water level is rising up. Now it has so happened that there is a monkey which has fallen in the well along with a baby monkey. So the mother monkey is trying to protect the baby monkey when the water is rising. But then the water continues to rise, and the stage comes where now the mother monkey itself, its survival is at stake. It puts the baby monkey under the feet and gets some height for itself. That means it kills the baby monkey and tries to save its life. And this is the story that is told to us to speak about the tendency of any life, the selfishness of any life, that the monkey doesn't bother to put the baby under the feet to get a pedestal for it in order that it can save itself. So this is how this tendency is. So see the devastating proportion of this tendency, that is not to cease to exist. The mother doesn't bother about the child as until that time it is bothering. So it goes on lifting the child, so that the child would not succumb to the inundation in the well. But when its existence comes at stake and it is endangered, this is what it does. This is how it is. This Abhinivesha is explained. So these are certain questions that we faced were answered, and these answers are from the wisdom lore, the wisdom bank of yogis. Now, the other thing, now comes a very, very, very formidable question here. With reference to Abhinivesha, this question, in the light of this klesha described here, there comes a question that how come that there are suicides in human history? We see there is a plethora of incidences where human beings have committed suicide. Now, do you mean to say that those who are embracing suicidal efforts and successful suicidal efforts, or even unsuccessful ones, do they do not have Abhinivesha, wherefore they are making an attempt to kill oneself, end oneself? Is it not absence of Abhinivesha when we see the tendency to commit suicide is quite rampant, and it has been there in human society from time immemorial? So suicidal tendency is also a tendency in human mind. That means, does it mean that there is absence of Abhinivesha? So we embark upon very, very interesting topic, that suicidal attempts are seen in human history. Now, if there are such attempts, that means one is not having the tendency that I should be ever existent, because suicidal effort means one wants to end one's existence. Now, is it absence of Abhinivesha? Or is it a condition that there is no Abhinivesha? Then when on one hand you say it is universal, it is there for every being, Now, how come that these suicidal episodes are so rampant in human history? Is it exception to Abhinivesha? So this is a very strong and formidable question, and we'll have to tackle it. But we will do this next time, because you see the question is so strong, detonating the idea or the postulation that Abhinivesha doesn't leave anyone. We are so emphatically heard so often now in the delineation that it is unexceptional vasana. It doesn't leave anyone. It doesn't leave even a yogi. And now, how is it that it seems to have left these people who are prone to commit suicides, or who make attempts at suicides, or who have committed suicides? It is indeed a very, very, very strong question. Let us not try to answer it with limitation of time, and therefore I reserve this question for the next session and perhaps the final session on Abhinivesha. So let us see that in our next session. Namaskar, all of you.